Welcome to our webinar, Scaling Agile at Rosetta Stone with JIRA Software, Portfolio for JIRA, and Confluence. In the first half of this webinar, you'll hear directly from the Rosetta Stone team on the journey of moving their product department to the Scaled Agile Framework, or SAFe.
Welcome everyone to Scaling Agile at Rosetta Stone. My name is Todd Glidewell. I am the PMO manager in our product department. I'll be joined today by Eric Hilfer, our VP of Engineering, Greg Buron, a Senior Director of Engineering, Harris Papamichael, our Product Manager in charge of assessment, and Chris Kaufman, a Senior Director of Product. Today we'll be diving into the journey that Rosetta Stone made when we decided to move our product department to the Scaled Agile Framework, or SAFe. Some of the items that we'll be diving into today would be why we chose SAFe, how to create value streams and agile release trains, team alignment, scaling your portfolio, program increment planning, the program board, innovation and planning sprints, scaling your UX department, and engineering best practices within SAFe.
Thanks, Todd. Hi, I'm Chris Kaufman, and I lead the product management and project management teams at Rosetta Stone. I'd like to begin this webinar by reflecting on some of the challenges we faced in 2014, which led to our efforts to scale Agile at our company. First off, in 2014, our Scrum teams were organized around each of the products in our portfolio, and with that setup, we had to shuffle people around if we wanted to adjust the relative priority of one product versus another over a period of time. We couldn't move the highest priority work to our people. We had to move people to the work, and that was disruptive to them. Secondly, our teams were agile, responding to customer needs every sprint, but we didn't have a strong understanding of our capacity across all of our teams, and we had difficulty aligning individual teams' work to larger company goals and timelines. To coordinate our product development efforts with those of sales, marketing, operations, and other groups within the company, we needed to be able to prioritize and predict the delivery of large-scale initiatives. We needed a multi-quarter view across the portfolio. So we were drafting that, but that effort was basically a top-down waterfall-style planning process that ran in parallel to the team's agile execution and produced roadmaps like the one you see on the right. Now, unsurprisingly, those roadmaps were not very accurate, and we were missing delivery dates as a result. Lastly, in 2014, we were finding it challenging to undertake large initiatives that had dependencies on our platform, or that required the work of multiple teams, because we didn't have a real process for managing dependencies across the Agile teams. This was a timely issue for us, as we had expanded our portfolio via several acquisitions, and one of the large initiatives we were attempting was an effort to integrate several of those products together, which is an intrinsically multi-product effort. There were a lot of things that we liked about Agile, particularly the way that it empowered our teams to directly address customer and business needs. But we needed scale. We needed a way for all of those teams to align together and tackle challenges that were bigger than any one of them could take on alone. That's what attracted us to the Scaled Agile Framework, or SAFe, and I encourage those of you who'd like to learn more about SAFe to visit their website. But SAFe is just one of several frameworks for addressing these challenges. And what's important is that, as with any Agile implementation, flexibility is key. You'll need to make a number of implementation decisions that are unique to your company. What follows is how we've done it at Rosetta Stone.
So about a year and a half ago, in December of 2014, we decided to make the change to our processes, and we chose to adopt SAFe, or Scaled Agile Framework. There are other methodologies out there that scale Agile, but we chose to go with SAFe. Our PMO took about 2 months to plan the change, get all the logistics in place, the communication out to everyone in our department, and then we just kicked it off in February of 2015. We've been using it successfully ever since, slowly getting better with each program increment, and we are about to go into our 6th program increment planning session. So one of the first steps that SAFe recommends is to train everyone. They call it implementing SAFe 1, 2, 3. And the process goes 1, train your change agents, 2, train your executives, and 3, train your teams. And then you're supposed to just jump in and start an agile release train. At Rosetta Stone, we sent all of our executives off for SAFe training. We got all of our Scrum Masters and about 20 people from our engineering, QA, and product management groups trained and certified in SAFe. By the time we started our first planning increment training session or planning session, we had people on every single team that understood the SAFe process. So creating value streams and agile release trains. The second thing we had to decide was how we were going to organize our teams in our product department. The SAFe framework has this concept of value streams, which basically forces you to think about how value flows from your organization to the customer. A company can have one or more value streams. So value streams are not about management structure, organizational lines. If you're a strong matrix or a weak matrix, they don't care about budgets or any of those things. They solely think about how features go from inception and into the customer's hands. So when you think about your products and the value that you deliver your customers, who all is involved in that? And once you can answer that question, you understand what your value stream is or your value streams. At Rosetta Stone, we very simply had a single value stream. So within value streams, you can have multiple agile release trains. Agile release trains is considered a team of teams. It's made up of about 50 to 125 people. And the agile release train is really, it's made up of the individuals who do the work to deliver the value to the streams. So when you think about all the teams that are involved in delivering value, again, keep it under 125 people, put them together, and you now have an ART, or an agile release train. Creating alignment with your teams and your program. So one of SAFe's core principles is alignment, and prior to running our first planning session in February of 2015, we had to make several changes to the way that our agile teams ran. Prior to implementing SAFe, every one of our teams was a self-organizing island. They decided on their own sprint cadence, their sprint duration, their story point definition, who should attend their sprint reviews, etc., etc. When we had large dependencies between multiple teams, this made it incredibly difficult to see them and track them. Currently, all of our teams begin and end their sprints on the same days. All of our teams sprint demo together. Everyone sees everyone else's work. All of our teams send all of their sprint goals to each other at the beginning of each sprint. All of our Scrum Masters meet once a week to review risks and dependencies across the entire Agile release train, and we all attend the exact same planning sessions at the beginning and of each program increment. We made another big change to the teams by normalizing the definition of a story point across the entire organization. This was probably one of the changes that had the most resistance, but the benefits have since outweighed the objections. So by normalizing what a story point means, we gain visibility into the velocity of the entire Agile release train. Estimating is still as inaccurate as estimating always is, but this kind of transparency enormously increases our ability to be predictable and to communicate with the business how much we can do in any given program increment. The way that we did this was very simple. We asked each team to find a small story in their backlog that would take roughly a day to develop and code, and give that story 1 point, and then estimate all other stories in relation to that story. Our teams used to be dedicated to single products. The team names would even mirror the products, and as such, the teams would only work on features and bugs for those products. Some of these products had huge backlogs, and others had very small backlogs. Our roadmap always listed new development work for every one of our products, whether that product was actually considered high priority to the company or not. We had very strict lines between products, and teams very rarely worked on anything other than their own products. After moving to SAFe, though, we made a significant change to our teams by making them feature-focused. With feature-focused teams, they all pick new names unrelated to any product, and now all teams attempt to be full-stack and cross-functional in that they can pick up any of the highest priority work to the business across all of our products. This increases our ability to swarm around high-priority work, and it increases our time to market.
Hello, my name is Greg Buron, and I'm a Senior Director of Engineering at Rosetta Stone, and one of the areas I support our SAFe implementation is quality and engineering best practices initiatives. Quality is one of the key aspects of SAFe to help deliver business value, and we do so by engaging in engineering and QA best practices. Specifically, one area we've strongly adopted is test-driven development. This helps us understand our requirements and designs better. It helps us detect defects very early in the process and maximize our quality and speed of delivery. QA happens in some stages and can be accelerated by the adoption of continuous delivery. The use of continuous delivery, or CD, allows us to turn around defect detection and resolution earlier as code changes are smaller and easier to tease apart from monolithic releases. Continuous delivery means QA and deploy in the same sprint as well. These concepts fit naturally into a safe process, maximizing quality and reducing time to market.
Thanks, Greg. This is Chris again. I mentioned earlier that many of the challenges we faced that led to our efforts to scale Agile revolved around visibility and alignment at the portfolio level. The framework suggests a lean approach to portfolio management, which uses a Kanban process to capture large epochs and make visible their journey from idea through to shipped feature. We've actually implemented this Kanban board in JIRA, where we've created swim lanes matching each of the stages of this process, which I'm about to walk you through. The first stage is the funnel, and this is where all ideas are welcome from anywhere across our business. The second stage is the review stage, and to reach this stage, epochs need a lightweight business case. This isn't heavy documentation, this is no more than 1 page, but the key is that it contain enough of a summary of the user business value, what's in scope and out of scope, key non-functional requirements, that folks from any of our teams can quickly grok, what is this feature about? Our product managers are the ones who are responsible for drafting these business cases and for prioritizing them, working with input from a wide range of stakeholders from across our value stream. Once we've established a set of high-priority epochs that appear to be within the work-in-process limits of 1 quarter worth of work, or program increment as we call them, we go a step deeper and we meet over the course of 1 week to estimate epochs at a high level. This is effectively the scaled version of a sprint team grooming meeting. And because we're a highly distributed team, these estimation meetings are virtual, and so we make use of the Agile Poker JIRA plugin to actually do the votes on point estimates. And with those estimates in place, Eric and I meet with our executive team and confirm the relative priorities across the portfolio. This step helps us ensure we've aligned with company priorities across the board. And with that prioritized list of epochs in hand, we head into release planning, which is an in-person 3-day planning session that's central to the success of our scaled process. Harris, Eric, and Greg are going to share more about that meeting next, but the output of the release planning is a set of objectives for the quarter, and we move those epochs into the backlog stage of our Kanban board. Lastly, as the teams begin to work on feature epochs, we move them into the implementing stage. At this point, teams have stories on their individual boards that are linked back to these epochs. This gives us a portfolio-level view of what the teams currently have in progress, and we use that to understand our work-in-process limits and apply those in turn against the epochs that are in earlier stages of this board to get a realistic sense of what could be accomplished across multiple quarters.
Hi, my name is Harris Papamichael, and I'm a product manager at Rosetta Stone in charge of assessment. Day 1 of planning is a result of careful preparation by product managers, stakeholders, and Agile teams. The first half of the day is a series of presentations centered on the vision of the upcoming PI and shared to the entire Agile release train, as you can see from the picture. This is my favorite part of planning because everyone gets together to share a common vision that structures the work that follows. The day starts with a discussion about the effectiveness of our programs and how well they meet customer needs. The vision presentation, which follows, is a mix of business goals and our architectural runway. Product manager shares the top 10 features which make our business goals. These features are the focus of the PI and are ranked by priority. A system architect presents the architectural runway vision and how this vision responds to current business goals and requirements. Architectural runway is important to our planning because it is the infrastructure to deliver features on a roadmap efficiently. Our goal is to allocate about 25% of the planned work to these enhancements. In addition, IT talks about their roadmap, which includes features and enhancements that may impact planning of the work related to the PI. An important part of day one is to review the planning process as it relates to SAFE, which is done by our lead project manager. The success of the PI planning relies heavily on how well day one goes and how well the vision is communicated to the Agile release train.
Hello, this is Eric Hilfer. I'm the Vice President of Software Engineering at Rosetta Stone. So when we have our quarterly program increment planning sessions, how do we capture all the detailed work that goes into the plan that we produce on site? The answer is with a program level board that captures the high level feature work across all of the teams and across a set of 4 or 5 sprints that make up our increment. What we try to track on that board are the delivery of the feature epochs that we've prioritized. This also can include interim parts of those epochs that are delivered by specific teams. The change for us as a culture here at Rosetta Stone around these epochs was to get used to the idea that one of these feature epochs could actually span multiple teams, meaning that the stories that comprise the epoch are not all on a single team's sprint board. So that means we often have these epochs living in a separate JIRA project, and then the actual stories are allocated out into specific teams on their backlogs and then into their sprint plans, but they all share a common parent epoch that goes across those teams. How we capture this in the planning session is we do the old school sticky note and cardboard board idea. So we start out with a blank slate that has columns for each sprint in the upcoming increment and rows for each of the teams that are working on that increment. If you look at the very top row, we also call out customer-facing or public deliverables, marketing campaigns, things that are basically large organizational milestones, not necessarily every internal software release. And then as we work together, each team takes some of the feature work off of the program backlog, starts to tackle actually fleshing out stories for those sprints to the best of our ability, in a 3-day planning session. We're not trying to be perfect here, but this gives us a big sense of the overall scope of the work and the pacing and scheduling and the balancing of capacity across the teams. As each deliverable is proposed from each team, it goes onto the board on that team's row. And then we start to look for dependencies. If we have teams in sprint 3 of the increment that are going to be consuming something delivered earlier by another team, we just show that dependency with a piece of red yarn going across from one story to the other. As you're looking at this, the pattern starts to emerge, and by day 3, we have something that's actually quite filled out. And you can see there are sometimes tangles of dependencies showing up on the board, and that's a really great visual indicator of either something that is high risk or something that's going to require careful collaboration. And we always try to de-risk those things by seeing if we can decouple any of those dependencies. Can we put a little more slack time between them? The whole idea here is to be extremely realistic, because we know at this stage we don't have super accurate information, but by kind of shaping out the whole increment, we end up with something much more accurate than we would have if we had just done it randomly or tried to do it on the fly moving forward. So once we have this board up on the wall, how do we take it back into our normal sprint plans? If we were all co-located, we could actually run off of this sticky note board and keep things in sync just in person and in real time. However, even if we were all sitting in one location, it would be better if we had something that could track more detail and was really staying up to date. And that's where we turn to Portfolio for JIRA to reflect the reality that's really going on our Scrum teams. So what's happening in JIRA? Here's a view of a team board for an instructional product team. Basically shows their backlog. What we've done is the team has, during planning, already pre-scheduled a bunch of stories into the upcoming 5 sprints and done this just in a provisional way. We all agree that there's going to be change here, but we're doing just enough thinking ahead to surface those dependencies and to get an overall sense of our capacity and how well we map our objectives into that. These are really goals, not commitments at this point. And the idea is to get us all talking about the same goals, making sure we're working on the same thing and identify all those handoffs. And let's look at another team here. This would be like an admin tools team. Same thing. They've put stories in there. And the thing we do is we actually use Script Runner add-on for JIRA to be able to show, to kind of extend the board queries so that we can see epics, even if those epics don't belong to the same source project as all of these stories. The epics that span these multiple teams will show up in these boards so that you can kind of see the context of the story you're working on, how it fits with the other stories in one of those epics. So then how do you get a view across these teams? And that's where Portfolio for JIRA comes in. What we have here is a kind of cross-team view, and it's easy to set up. We basically just say we're going to get our issue sources for this program level or portfolio level plan and just name the boards. In our real instance, we'd have like 10 or 15 boards contributing to this plan. For this example, I've just got a couple of samples here. So take a look at the plan, and we've got the teams represented. So these are the teams that the issue sources are coming from. And then up here is a scope view. It just basically shows the upcoming sprints kind of mapped out. And you can group by team. You can see which of these epics are basically in progress by which of the teams on a sprint-by-sprint basis. You can see here our sprints are aligned across those teams. They don't have to be precisely aligned. The portfolio view will take into account slightly different sprint cadences for different teams if that's necessary. When you drill down and look at the stories themselves, it gives you a really good sense of what's going on. And you can see progress is indicated here in the actual raw list. And up here, there's a little visual indicator when stories have dependencies. So basically you can say, this is what kind of takes the place of the red yarn on the physical program board. You can actually see what are the downstream dependencies on any story here that is linked. And these are based on basically the blocking links and other similar links that you just set up normally within JIRA boards. What's great about this is because our teams were already using JIRA software to track their sprint plans and do their sprint planning and workflow processing. None of that changes. It just rolls up now into a coherent view so we can look at our progress across all of the teams, highlight when the dependencies are coming, start to see if you have some slippage of things kind of moving off into future sprints, and get velocity and burn down across all of that. Really important in tracking these handoffs is that also people's roles expand and they take some program level ownership for some of these things in progress. If you look at some of these linked stories that are falling under larger epics, it's really important that we identify an owner or steward for each of those epics. And there may be multiple stewards. We've actually added that field to our JIRA boards so that on the issues themselves, you can indicate an engineering steward, a QA steward, maybe a UX steward, even DevOps, so that anything that requires coordination across teams has a designated person that feels responsible and interested in the outcome of that story. Just in the same way that moving to Agile teams helps the individuals work together and feel a collective responsibility for the team's deliverables. At the program level, we're looking across teams. It's no longer enough to just say my team did its part. It's important that you're looking across teams and saying, how can I facilitate the other work and the handoffs that need to happen for this feature to actually be delivered?
The Innovation and Planning Sprint is the final sprint of the program increment. It is focused on wrap-up activities of the PI, as well as time to focus on forward-thinking initiatives. Specifically, this sprint represents dedicated time carved out for Agile ceremonies such as the Program Increment Demo, Program Increment Retrospective, Vision Pre-Planning for the next PI, and Epic Estimation for the next PI. Additionally, this time also represents dedicated capacity and time to focus on thought leadership and execution of innovation projects. As the work of the current PI wraps up, the summation of the work for the program increment is demoed internally to the organization, as well as key stakeholders with the PI systems demo. This is a chance to show off all the work done over the PI. As you can see, this is an inclusive demo focusing on the accomplishments across the entire Agile release train. Retrospectives, in the form of the Inspect and Adapt workshop, are also held to support a Kaizen ideology to continuously improve the process. This is also a time for the teams to gather and start grooming the Epic backlog and understand the work coming up in the next PI, reducing risk and making the face-to-face meetings in the week after even more effective. Last but not least, everyone in the organization is empowered to focus on innovation during this sprint. This is a chance for all team members, not just engineers, to focus on exciting and innovative work items that align with future business objectives. These are also demoed at the end of the innovation sprint, and many are injected into future program increment plans as they serve as proof of concept or generate momentum to be incorporated as features for even new products.
Prior to implementing SAFe, we attempted to embed our UX folks onto each of our teams. We didn't have a particularly large UX department, we still don't, so this meant we had UX team members assigned to multiple teams. This proved to be largely ineffective, and there was very little transparency across products or UX individuals' assignments. Now we treat UX as a shared service. They have their own JIRA Kanban board, and every team that requests UX work has to add a story to their backlog. These stories are estimated by the UX department using story points. They understand what their own capacity is per individual. These tickets are also tagged with customized components in JIRA, and we use an extensive set of quick filters that allows us to accomplish the following. We can see all the work that any single individual is working on in the UX department. We can also see all the work across any given product. We can also roughly see when each story will be completed, and with this process in place, our UX department is much more consistently and transparently able to deliver on our PI objectives.
Thanks, Todd. This is Chris again. To wrap things up, I'd like to return to the three major challenges we faced in 2014, which led us to these efforts to scale up Agile at Rosetta Stone. Todd shared with you how we developed a team structure that was oriented towards feature delivery, which allowed us to align our product development efforts to our company's highest priorities. I shared with you how we replaced our waterfall roadmaps with a Kanban portfolio-level view that offers far better visibility into the output of our teams. And because it's connected with the real efforts of those teams, it's made delivery more predictable, which in turn has improved the trust the rest of our company has in our product organization. And lastly, Harris, Eric, and Greg shared with you a number of the tactics we've used to manage dependencies, reduce risk, and improve quality. Thank you so much for your time and interest. I know these challenges are shared by many organizations, and we've had the good fortune to learn from the many successes before us. I wish you all the best on your own journeys towards scale, and I hope that you'll share some of your own learnings back with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Scaling Agile at Rosetta Stone. To get your team started with Scaling Agile using Portfolio for JIRA, click on the Try It Free button on the left. To see how Rosetta Stone uses JIRA software and Portfolio for JIRA to scale their Agile software development across multiple teams and projects, click on the video at the top right of your screen. To continue on to the Q&A session of this webinar, click the See What's Next button at the bottom right of your screen. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time!